Hey, hello there. Welcome to Talking with Tony. I'm your host, Tony Jones. Tonight, it's my pleasure to welcome back John Perkerson, a member of the Talking with Tony family, because he's a member of the Talking with Tony football panel. John, thanks for coming back in and doing Talking with Tony.
Appreciate you having me. Always a good time to make the trip down here.
Season 15, we'll put this episode up on YouTube so all your fans can see. But as far as female fans go, breaking news as of last week, off the market. Congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Finally found the girl that can put up with my foolishness for long term.
That's being a little unfair to you because you're a tremendous guy. I remember knowing you for several years, and one night Georgia was in a very difficult football game at Missouri, and that was about the same time that a relationship was also ending, and you were probably like, okay, what else is going to go wrong today? But I think those days are all behind you.
Yeah, I hope so. This season, during the Kentucky game, I had a bad flashback. I was like, uh-oh, they're about to call me and break up, but thankfully that didn't happen.
Little seriousness, because pets are people too. Your beloved dog, we'll have to throw a picture up of him and all. He's gone through some ACL surgery recently.
Yeah.
How's he recovering?
He's doing good. Obviously I was there with him all the time, but real world won't allow that. But really looking forward to next Friday, so October 18th. Because I'll be able to take his stitches out, and then I won't have to freak out about him, accidentally licking them and getting it infected, and next thing I know, having to, take him to the emergency room to get that all cleared out. But, we've got about another 5 weeks of recovery, and then he should be cleared, and, then get him back to just being the happy dog he is.
Now you take him for little rides with the wheelbarrow and all, and kind of limit his time on his feet, and know that probably helps with the going to the bathroom stuff and all. But it's a lot of work, really is.
Yeah, it was. Thankfully that only lasted for a couple of days. Then he was able to walk again. But I mean, he was getting a little too comfortable getting wheeled around in that little barrow we had.
I'm told that my Facebook is an open book because I don't hold back. You're very similar. You put up a lot of you put up a lot of sarcastic things, a lot of funny things, but you also put up a lot of life's lessons and bring people smiles and happiness.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to be the modern day Louis Grizzard, since I live in Moreland now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
How'd you like, we're not too far away from Halloween, and I sent you that football team up there and coming out with the headless horseman and all. That was kind of a neat thing, especially if you had the volume up and heard the music and all.
Yeah, that was a very neat way to do that. And I mean, more props to that guy who was riding a horse. But I don't know how he could see, but
Yeah.
I don't like getting on a horse, period. I definitely wouldn't want to get on one and I can't see where I'm going.
Pretty unique talents for people who can, and that was a unique way for them to take the field. We're into the Major League Baseball playoffs now. The Braves have been eliminated, but they did a great job getting to the playoffs with all the injuries they had. They've got these players, most of them, locked up for years to come, so they'll be a factor. My Yankees, as we film this, are in a very difficult series with the Royals, and hopefully they're going to advance on. Detroit, at the time we're filming this, is leading Cleveland 2-1. I would love to see an American League Championship Series that had the Yankees and the Tigers, because when they're playing at home, those are two of the best uniforms. You get our pinstripes, and you get that old English D with the Tigers, that classic look. You like that? You like that uniform? I love it.
Yeah, it's a cool looking uniform. Spoiler alert for folks at home, it's on the background right now, and getting to see all that. It's nice to look at, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, I forgot that they were playing at home tonight. Yeah, that's right. And they just need one game to advance to the American League Championship Series. Now, if it's the Royals that advance, there'll be a rematch of the 1984 American League Championship Series, and the Tigers swept them and then went on and beat the Padres in the World Series. That's totally possible again, because the Padres and the Dodgers are playing in the National League right now. As we film this, they're tied 2-2 apiece. This will be coming out just as that series is concluding. But to me, those two teams are elite baseball teams. The Dodgers have so much talent in their lineup, the Ohtani and the Betts and the Freddie Freeman. But then the Padres, since the trade deadline, have really done a lot of improving to their bullpen, and they've got Tatis back, and he's just a stud. He's just a monster.
Yeah, Braves fans will be having nightmares about him for a little while.
Yeah. I know that you have it set home and watched every inning of every playoff game, but if you had to pick one team right now that you thought might win it all, who would that be?
it's so hard to predict because, like last year, you would have said, oh, the Braves hottest team.
Sure.
And then, they got put out in their, first series they played in. So, maybe the Padres are this year's version of the Phillies where they just go on that hot run and make it. But, I guess what I'll go with is I'll take the easy way out and go with the Dodgers. I know our buddy Hap Hines will be happy to hear that. But, you figure with all that talent, they can maybe overcome the time off, but just wait and see.
It seems like to me, and I respect the Dodgers and their tradition, but it seems like to me, the 40-man roster, they get 70 guys on there because they have different players up all the time on their 25-man roster.
Well, Ohtani can play, all 9 positions and, probably even manage the team too. So,
And not be paid off for like 10 more years or something, the way that should be a fun night in LA for that Game 5. And full credit to the New York Mets who've advanced to the National League Championship Series. They were, because of the hurricane that came through, Helene, I think is how you pronounce it. The Braves and the Mets had to play a doubleheader the day after the regular season was over to complete the 162-game schedule. So the Mets had to win one against the Braves, just like the Braves did. And the Mets have parlayed winning that first game into advancing all the way to the National League Championship Series.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. I'm not the biggest baseball expert. I enjoy watching it, but it just seems like that is the sport where momentum, as far as just over days or weeks at a time, really makes a bigger difference. With football, after the game, you're going to get a week off. Now, some teams are able to carry that momentum, but like with baseball, you just see it where if you get hot at the right time, especially if it's, October, you've seen teams that maybe had, an okay but not great regular season make it to the World Series.
And with too many wild card teams are winning the World Series or making the World Series. Is there anything that you would do to adjust? I'd get rid. I mean, they're not because of the money that it makes, but I wouldn't even have that round of playoffs that we're having because, John, I'd just give a history lesson to our viewers. Up until 1969, there was no even league championship series. There was an American League and a National League, and they played in the regular season, and whoever had the 2 best records in the American League and National League, they met each other for the World Series. And I don't mind admitting, as a diehard Yankees fan, the Yankees don't have all these world championships that they have if they would have had to play all these extra playoff rounds, but because they had the best record in the American League, they went straight to the World Series. So for years and years and years, even in '78 when the Yankees and the Red Sox tied, they had to play a 1-game playoff. It's a very famous game up in Fenway where Bucky Dent hit a two-run home run, and the Yankees won the game 5-4. The Yankees, as I like to say, they didn't celebrate very long in their locker room because they had to get on a plane and fly to Kansas City for Game 1, which was the next night in Kansas City. So there was no wild card. There was no divisional series. Would you adjust if you were the MLB commissioner? Is there anything you do? Because the Braves were penalized last year. They had that tremendous year, but they had basically 5 days off where they were out of sync. It took them deep into the second game with the Phillies before they found their bats. And at that time, that was just good enough to split 2 games in Atlanta before they had to go to Philadelphia. Anything that you would adjust?
I don't like giving Jason Tidwell credit because he gives enough credit to himself. But he said it best, like, if you're the higher seed, you really have to have home field advantage, whether it's like switching that format up where it's, like last year, 3 games straight in Atlanta or then 1 game in Philly and then you finish the series or however. It's not fair to the teams because the Dodgers ran into this last year too where, you get all that time off and then you really don't have a home field advantage. Let's say if you drop Game 1 or Game 2, you have to go to your opponent for 2 straight games, and then, it's just a mess. And I think sometimes the better teams get knocked out because they're just not fresh.
I think, in my opinion, after the opening round, whatever this is, for the divisional series, the team that made it through that wild card round gets to play Game 1 at home. Yeah. And if it could be good for them that maybe they finished that previous series at home. Maybe they had that series at home. They get to host Game 1, but then the rest of the series is played away. Because there's got to be some kind of reward for winning your division.
Yeah, and having a good regular season.
Yeah, other than sitting out for 5 days. And they say, well, you get to line up your pitching. But, there's got to be something else.
Yeah.
Too many of those teams are advancing, and we need to do more to reward the winners.
Yeah, and I like that idea. You give the wild card round winner, you give them their roses to say, but then it's like, okay, this team had the better regular season. This is your reward for that. You get home field the rest of the series.
The Tigers would have played game one and after they beat Houston at home in Detroit, but then the rest of the series would have been in Cleveland. I mean, that's just something to try to
balance.
To balance. That's right. Speaking of how we would adjust things, anybody that's watched Talking with Tony for years and years and years knows that I did not want to expand the college football playoff. I wanted to keep it 4 teams. Everybody's like, no, 12 teams are going to be so much greater. UJ is going to win. It doesn't matter. I just would hear all of this, But in the past week, I've had more people say to me, man, I wish it was now 4 teams because Bama's got a loss and Georgia's got a loss, and that SEC championship game would have meant probably everything because it probably would have meant, the winner advancing, and that's not even including Texas or whoever else could potentially be. So now, people are freaking out about, is this the biggest loss in Alabama history, ranked number 1, losing at Vanderbilt, which it's not, and that's been so overinflated, and Paul Feinbaum is a real problem, and he's a real, instigator with that. Bama can still be in the college football playoff and could still win the national championship. Georgia can still be in the college football playoff with ease. They may be, one of those teams could be the SEC champion and have that bye and not have to play to the so-called quarterfinals. I was always for 4 teams. That was enough because I think it's costly to go. It was costly for us to go to Pasadena. It was costly for us to go to Arizona. We weren't like Georgia that played Alabama in their backyard and Georgia played Ohio State in their backyard. Now, they had some away games too in Indianapolis and then out west also. But I just didn't see the purpose of 12 teams except for the fact that it's a money maker. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't seem like Ohio State's playing Oregon. I'm wearing a Mika Ibuka's jersey right now. The loser of this game is not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. It might be good for Ohio State actually to lose, and sort of like I was telling a friend that went to Purdue, I was telling her, Purdue a few years ago had that basketball team that remained undefeated for a long time. I think they needed a loss to take that pressure away from them. I think that might be good for one of these teams just to get a loss, be brought back down and have to come back and build up, and there's a lot of football left still to be played.
Yeah, I was talking about this in one of my group chats. The days of undefeated college football national champions are probably done for. If there was only the 4-team playoff after this past weekend, you're like, oh, good grief. Because this past weekend, I may have texted you this week. It reminded me a lot of that 2007 season that was just so unpredictable, every week. Being a Georgia fan, I'm glad to know that the Alabama loss doesn't completely knock them out. And I'm also a little bit happy knowing that if they lose to Texas a week from Saturday, that doesn't completely knock them out. But like everything, there's pros and cons, and it's just we've had so much change to college football in such a short amount of time that it's just been really hard to deal with.
Well, you said something, John, on Talking with Tony years ago. It was after Georgia won the first national championship, and you said, talking about the craziness that was coming with the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, that you were glad that Georgia won a national championship before it was already crazy, but before it got too crazy. And we're already here at this too crazy stage. But I remember you saying that. You were right on the money by saying that because things are out of control.
Yeah, just yesterday, they got rid of national letters of intent. So those are a thing of the past now, too. And my dyslexia got to me. I was like, oh, NIL's gone? And I was like, nope, NLI.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
You ready to pick some games this week?
Yeah.
All right, John, you're doing okay. You're 30-31 on the year. That's right at 500, but the 5 stars are 1-5. Let's begin with a team that Georgia handled so easily in the first week in the Dome. Clemson, 21-point favorites at Wake Forest. They've looked so much better, and of course you have to take opponents into consideration. That was probably Georgia's best football game of the year, that very first game. That told you, they looked like, to me, they were in midseason form, maybe midseason and above form already. But Clemson, to their credit, has come back, and they've come back with a vengeance, and now they're 21-point favorites at Wake Forest. Yeah,
the only thing about Georgia is that they only want to play after the midpoint of every game now. But, I think... I'll go with Clemson, but I won't be shocked if Wake keeps it within that spread.
To Wake Forest plus the 21. Yeah. Pittsburgh is at home. Two teams having a great year against California. Cal had the whole college game day experience with them. They had the big lead in the second half and on against Miami, but now they have to turn around. This team has been going back and forth around the country, and now they got to go to Pennsylvania to take on Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the classic ACC matchup there. But, that travel, no matter who you are and no matter what age you are, it's going to catch up to you. So I'm going to go with Pitt.
That's why I went with Florida State a couple of weeks ago when they went there. And is that Florida State's only win this year? I believe it is. But I think, travel there. So totally understand. You got Pittsburgh -3 there. Texas and Oklahoma. We have to preface this by saying last year, you were the guest on Talking with Tony. You gave out the exact final score of the Oklahoma-Dallas game. We're not requiring you to do that, but this is a 5-star selection for you, and Texas is 14.5-point favorites, and no Quinn Ewers, so it'll be Manning that plays quarterback for Texas.
Yeah, and there's no drop-off. But, I predicted Oklahoma to do the upset last year, and I'm going to predict it again. I'm probably going to look like a moron come Saturday night, but, until they let me down, I'll go with the Sooners.
I like the pick, and I like the fact that you said at Saturday night, because usually this game is played at noon, and finally this game is going to be played at 3:30 Eastern, and it reminds me of being I wasn't even a teenager. I was younger than a teenager, and it seems like it was 1984, and Oklahoma and Texas playing like they do in Dallas. It was pouring down rain, and there was a question on whether or not there was an interception or not in the end zone of a very tight, close game, and people can look up YouTube and find what I'm talking about, but it was absolutely pouring, and those two teams were elite teams then, so it was a big deal. That game was at 3:30, and Keith probably had Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles, the number one broadcasters at the time, and we just haven't had that 3:30, that nighttime experience kind of come in to this because I've been playing at noon. Okay, let's go to where it will be daylight out in L.A. Southern Cal hosting, we still call them Southern Cal here on this show. We don't refer to them as USC. Penn State is favored by 5 at Southern Cal. I see you like the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, again, another classic Big Ten matchup we got here. But, I'm just not a believer in Southern Cal's head coach. I know he's got a lot of Heisman winners and everything, but it always seems like even at Oklahoma, he finds a way to lay an egg, and so I'll go with the Nittany Lions.
Well, you're right on that as far as I went to that semifinal with my friend Doug Benninger, who's an Oklahoma grad, and they played LSU, and I think Joe Burrow had a touchdown pass on like the first 7 drives of the game. Jalen hooked up with CeeDee Lamb on a beautiful pass, but that first half, it was just not nearly enough. They had no answer. I'm going to go opposite with you here. I go opposite with you in a couple of these. I'm going to go with Clemson -21 against Wake Forest, and then I'm going to go take Southern Cal +5. But I'm just doing it because of the travel that we sort of cited earlier with Penn State, with having to go all the way across country. But Southern Cal has certainly been beatable. It's not. He doesn't have the magic that he had at Oklahoma, and he certainly is missing Caleb Williams also. SEC battle, Florida Gators are at Tennessee. Tennessee, a big number, favored by 15.5.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is going to come out, just really fired up and ticked off about last week, and, Florida's just barely keeping their head above water, so I could see that one getting ugly early.
Okay. You and I are opposite on this next one. It's my 5-star. I'm 13-14 on the year, and 3-3 with the 5 stars, and 5-3 in soccer. No soccer this week because the countries are facing each other. So the English Premier League and the Bundesliga in Germany, they're off. But I'm going to go with my 5-star with Ole Miss -3.5. This is back-to-back away games. They were impressive in Columbia. They need another victory. They've stumbled this year. LSU, they don't sit right with me right now.
Yeah.
And I thought about this one pretty hard, and I looked at some possible factors that would pull me towards LSU, and they just weren't there, weren't appealing enough.
Yeah, and I get that. And the thing about both teams is they're both just so Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You just never know what you're going to get any Saturday with them.
I'm not a man who drinks or smokes, but I've heard that both will help take the edge off. And if the Yankees lose Game 4, that means Game 5 will be Saturday night. At the same time, Ohio State is traveling to face Oregon. I might have to go get a 6-pack and a 20-pack or whatever you guys that do smoke on, because whatever's going to take the edge out. Because I'm already stressed out, and it's just Thursday. Even though I just said earlier they can afford to lose, I'm not making a pick here. But I see that you have, and you like the Oregon in those points. Oregon is a hard place to go win a football game.
Let me preface one thing. I do not smoke, so I don't need that rumor flying around.
Sorry if that was what it sounded like.
Yeah.
I meant like you guys, like as in the viewers, and not necessarily you.
Yeah, next thing I know, the whole rumor around Noonan High School is I'm chiefing cigs, outside the class.
Hey, so what was your favorite when you were a smoker? What was your favorite? Was it Marlboro, Camels? What were they?
Never been one. Never.
I heard it was Virginia Slims.
No.
Totally teasing on that. I never tried it, and I never developed that love for beer that people talk about. They say it's acquired taste. Never was able to. So, but it's Ohio State and it's Oregon, and dude, man, Oregon is a hard place to play and get a win.
And I'm a big Dan Lanning fan. I think if Kirby were to ever up and leave, that's who I, as a fan, would want them to call first. Josh Brooks and Jer Moorhead, bring Lanning home. I think he just does a really good job, and it kind of goes against what I said with Penn State going to Southern Cal, but you do have the cross country travel there, and Eugene's. People can make fun of like Oregon all they want to with the crazy uniforms and all that, but those people there love their football.
Are we going to see an insane uniform on Saturday night?
It seems like they've done a little bit less of that the past few years, but I wouldn't be overly shocked either.
Because Lanning sort of comes across to me as like an old school kind of guy that wouldn't put up with a whole lot of nonsense.
Yeah, I think he's more of
traditional.
Yeah, like we're coming out here to match up head to head and go at it. We don't buy into the gimmicks.
Yeah, I haven't given the panel members often too many opportunities to take UCLA, but I do this week. 2 teams struggling. Minnesota favored by 5 at UCLA. Now, this is my favorite logo. I always have Jake find the good-looking old-school Bruin leaning against the UCLA. So I'm going to pick UCLA +5 just to see him, just to see the Bruin up there again. This will be a hard game for UCLA, who just went across country and played Penn State, but played they gave a good effort. They really, I felt like they really represented themselves well. They didn't win, lost 27-11, but Penn State's a far better team than they are right now. Now they're at home and they're catching 5 points. Minnesota's favored by 5. You think the Bruins play competitive?
I think so too. I'm gonna go with them. I still love when Coach O called him wearing that sissy blue, because I'm like you. I've always kind of been a John Wooden fan, and traditions there and all that. So, I'm gonna go with UCLA.
My wife Tara asked me a question not long ago. She said, if you could have played for anybody, Division I basketball, who would it have been? And I think it surprised her when I said UCLA, but it is the team with the national championships. It is where John Wooden played. It is where Kareem played. It is where Bill Walton played. I mean, why? Have an opportunity to be a part of that. You wouldn't want to miss that opportunity.
And I know how you feel about clean shaved and wearing your socks a certain way.
Absolutely, everybody should be clean shaven. I cannot believe you're not clean shaven tonight, but that's for another story. I'm not going to give you a hard time about anything because I'm proud of you. Washington is at the Baltimore Ravens. This is not far to go for a road trip. We've been talking about for distances and all. Ravens favored by 6.5, but Washington with Jaden Daniels having a huge year.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost kind of make the case that Jaden Daniels may be kind of like the next Lamar Jackson coming up. So I'm going to go with the Commanders making a statement win.
Okay, don't mind you saying Commanders, but here on the show, we also still refer to them as the Redskins. So what Jake has to do is, that was a great-looking helmet, the Redskins helmet. And I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, and those were the rivals, the Cowboys and the Redskins. Didn't really have that feel right now, Cowboys and Commanders, like it did Cowboys and Redskins. So Jake Barton, you've got to find that Washington Redskins helmet and put that up for John, because he's taking Washington +6.5. The second NFL game, talking about 2 teams with a lot of traditional power that met in the AFC playoffs for years and years and years, especially in the 70s and the 80s. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are favored by 3 over the not Oakland Raiders, not Los Angeles Raiders, but Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah. You like the Steelers to go on the road and get the victory? Yeah,
Mike Tomlin guy, and the Steelers have a history of drafting UGA guys, so
okay.
Go with them.
Almost everybody took the Falcons on this next selection. We only had Danny take the Carolina Panthers, but the Falcons are favored by 6 at the Panthers. I like them. They're getting a few extra days because they played on Thursday night, and that was a huge win to pick up. They're in first place, but they're right there. Tampa is right there with them, and the Saints are right there with them. The Saints won't have Carr this week playing quarterback, but their schedule is easier in the next 8-10 weeks. The Falcons are going to need this game, try to get some separation in the standings. You and I both like Atlanta -6.
Yeah, I mean, Kirko Cousins, or what they're calling it, Kirktober right now. And, I mean, the Panthers are a dumpster fire, so.
Okay. One final game to ask you about, and that was a selection of mine too, by the way, the Falcons -6. The Bengals favored by 3.5 Sunday Night Football at the Giants. The Bengals managed to lose the game against the Ravens, and Burrow and Chase were just phenomenal together in that game. They need this as a rebound. Bengals favored by 3.5.
Yeah, and I mean, if you got to play a rebound game, if you don't have the Panthers, the Giants are the next best option. So going with the Bengals.
Very well said. All right, so let's run down John's picks. He's 30-31, 1-5 on the year. He goes with Wake Forest +21, Pittsburgh -3. Here's his 5 stars. Oklahoma +14.5, and it's just worth repeating. Last year he nailed the score, so we expect that 5-star to come through.
Don't let me down.
He's got Penn State -5. Tennessee -15.5 in a battle of two former SEC East powers. LSU +3.5 at home against Ole Miss. He goes with Oregon +3.5 against the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's got UCLA +5, that good-looking Bruin leaning up against UCLA. It's the best-looking thing ever. And then on to the NFL, Washington, the Redskins, now the Commanders +6.5. The Pittsburgh Steelers -3. The Atlanta Falcons -6, and he goes with the Cincinnati Bengals -3.5. I am 13-14 on the year, 3-3 with the 5 stars, 5-3 with the soccer. I'm going to skip soccer this week. We'll go with Clemson -21, Southern Cal -5 to give me the Trojans there +5 at home. My 5 stars, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin -3.5. I'll take UCLA, if nothing else, because I love that Bruin so much. UCLA +5. And I'm going to go with one NFL selection, and that's the Atlanta Falcons -6. Don't let me down, home team. Stormy is 30-31, 2-4 with 5 stars. He's got Wake Forest +21. Pittsburgh -3. The Texas Longhorns -14.5. He has the Southern California Trojans +5. He goes for the Tennessee Volunteers -15.5. He agrees with John, LSU +3.5, and his 5-star is Oregon +3.5. Though he's trying to do me a favor. He's been so bad with the 5 stars, he said, you know what, I'm going to take Oregon, maybe they'll help out Ohio State. So I appreciate Stormy being a good friend. He's got the Minnesota Golden Gophers -5, and Jake, you'll have to find that Golden Gopher with showing his teeth there too. Minnesota -5 to round out his college plays. He goes with Washington +6.5, the Steelers -3, Falcons -6, and he's on the New York Giants +3.5. Two more members of the panel to run down. Kevin is 30-31, 1-5 with the 5 stars. He's got Wake Forest +21, Pittsburgh -3, Oklahoma +14.5. Kevin's 5-star, Penn State -5, Tennessee -15.5. He goes with Ole Miss -3.5. He takes the Buckeyes. He goes with Ohio State Ohio State -3.5, and Minnesota -5. In the NFL, he goes with the Baltimore Ravens -6.5, the Raiders +3. The Falcons -6, and the Cincinnati Bengals -3.5. Finally to Danny, who led the panel going into last week, but man, did he stumble. He's now 28-33, and he's 3-3 and 5 stars. He begins with Clemson -21, Pittsburgh -3. He agrees with John with Oklahoma +14.5. He's got the Penn State Nittany Lions -5, the Florida Gators to play competitively at Tennessee +15.5. He goes with Ole Miss -3.5. I like that pick a lot. He goes to the Buckeyes -3.5, and I hope he's right there. And finally, give him that good-looking Bruin, UCLA +5. And the NFL is where his 5-star appears. It's Washington +6.5 with the good-looking helmet. And the Pittsburgh Steelers -3, Carolina Panthers +6. And we round out this week's picks with the New York Giants +3.5. John, I really appreciate it. Congratulations on your engagement. Congratulations on Sarah. And thanks so much for appearing on Talking with Tony. We hope you'll be back soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Look forward to it.
Folks, that's all the time we have for Talking with Tony. As we exit this week, get behind my Yankees. Hopefully Saturday night's not a terrible night for me and they're eliminated, because if they can't win the American League this year, I don't know when they would win. Tune in next week. Danny, we just ran off his picks last. He'll be the guest right here on Talking with Tony. We'll see you then.